How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in plates? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. Today, I'm excited to talk to you guys. I've got one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to establishing financial freedom, unconventional financial methods of investing, saving, utilizing tax strategy, and why everyone should have an LLC. All of that. This guy is a wealth of knowledge and is has quickly become one of my greatest confidants in the space. And so I'm really excited to talk to him and allow him to impart some of his knowledge on you. Keith Gause, welcome, my man.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. You are a guy I definitely appreciate jamming with all the time because I think the message that you bring and kind of the methodologies that you teach are definitely in alignment with what I'm putting into practice and also trying to espouse for people to kind of escape the rat race and not spend a million years trading time for dollars. Right. So tell us a little bit about yourself and like what your background is.
Yeah. So, traditionally, I'm not your finance guy, right? My road to this journey was the whole 9 yards, right? Hate school, don't want to go there, so went to the military. Go to the military, do that thing, 99 to 04, right at 05, we get home. And I initially thought I was going to go run my dad's plumbing company. And my dad had been an entrepreneur my entire adolescence, so I get to watch him make mistake after mistake after mistake and get back up and go. And I can never figure out like what was the passion that kept him getting up every day, knowing I'm about to get my ass whipped. Right. I mean, we walk into it on a daily basis. So I didn't know that back then. I couldn't, I wasn't able to put two and two together. So after the military, I think I'm going to run this business. It's pretty successful at that time. I think he was 20, damn near 20 years in. So he'd figured it out. Then you get two jumbo alpha males that are related into the same room trying to make decisions together. And it ultimately just doesn't work. So I think a little bit of that was me missing the adrenaline. So I pivot left, I go to law enforcement, spend a bunch of time doing that. But in the midst of that, my wife had got pregnant, so shit had gotten real. We're making $38,000, $39,000 a year as a police officer. Now I got a baby coming. So that stress wore out on me. And I gambled on myself one day. I basically went and spent 20 grand on a business name and one inflatable bounce house. And I got this idea because I'd been seeing these things in the hood where I patrolled as law enforcement. I'm like, dude, these kids are everywhere with these things. So I was like, people always spend money on their kids. Let's try it. So dumb luck, I try it, and I made $1,500 in the first 2 days of business. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. Which was like reflective of an entire 2-week paycheck from the sheriff's office, right?
Sure.
So I was like, shit, I'm onto something. So tell my wife I'm quitting my job and I'm going to do this full time, just like any entrepreneur does. Like head first, don't worry about it. We'll figure this thing out. I got it. She's absolutely not. So I stayed in law enforcement, but really that, I was working midnights, 6 p.m., 6 a.m. I would get home, take a shower, and go run the business. So I built that business from 2009 and we sold it 2011. I made a 7-figure exit and immediately, got introduced to the IRS.
Yeah.
Right. Because, being a W-2 before that, not having a business, you pay taxes every paycheck and you keep moving.
Yep.
And typically you get a return. So that wake up call for me threw me into a tailspin of self-studying finances, financial planning, investments, opportunities to shield taxes. And I got recruited by a buddy to go to Northwestern Mutual. So reluctantly, I went there, although I didn't anticipate being a professional life insurance salesman, which is what it turned out to be, which is okay. But it gave me time and space to figure out what I wanted to do really with that profession. And that was to help growth-oriented entrepreneurs avoid making the same mistakes I made in that business, right?
Yep.
And so we did that. I launched Tideland Consulting finally after almost 9 years of being at Northwestern, and we're a few years in on the consulting side and rocking and rolling.
I love it. I love it, man.
For sure.
And so, what do you think? Because you're always dropping nuggets when you and I are talking. Like, let's. How can we make this the most useful episode? I think one of the ways to do that would be like, let's talk about some unconventional stuff that like I know about and maybe you know about. They definitely bring up stuff because I don't know as much as you do, certainly. So, like, why? What? Because I brought it up at the beginning. So, like, why should everybody have an LLC?
Well, I think it's not even the LLC. I think people just need to be focused on avenues and not just proactively handing money over.
Correct.
Right. If you're a high income W-2 earner, it's not okay to pay 40% in taxes and wash your hands at the end of the day and be like, well, at least I came home with X.
Mm-hmm.
The tax code book was invented for people to eliminate taxes. I mean, that's truly what it was. So why the hell are we not using it for that? So I think it's not even the LLC. I think people just need to start thinking through the process of what should I do? What can I do to get some of this back? The LLC comes into play because that's the easiest step to get there.
Yeah.
Right. It's, hey, if you own a business, not only do you have some of these opportunities to offset taxes, but now you got this big ass book that's got a lot more opportunity by virtue of you being a business owner, right? And so to be a business owner, you literally can pay $135 and file your paperwork, and 35 minutes later, voila, you're
Right.
there.
But I think the interesting thing that most people would never think of is that, like, regardless of whether you have a W-2 job or not, it would be beneficial for you to have this acumen, this business knowledge, and also that $135 LLC.
Right. And really, we work with quite a few on the W-2 side that are well paid, right? And let's face it, most well paid people traditionally have investment real estate just because their friends talk about it, right? It's not like a thing, but hey, Johnny's doing it, so why don't we? Let's find something to buy. And that specific one piece, if you have one rental property, if you pay $135 and maybe $2,000 to retitle that house into your business name, you are in fact an active business owner.
Correct.
That allows us to then go after that W-2 tax and start clawing some of those things back for you.
Yeah.
Right? So that's simple.
Yeah, because I mean, what I tell my people all the time is like, you've made a good, like you've established your skill set as being a good earner at this point. Now it's about keeping more of what you actually bring home. Absolutely. And there's a million ways to do it, just like you talk about. I mean, the tax code is written to take advantage of all of those. They're not loopholes, they're instructions on how to keep more of your money.
Yeah. And then we get the fearful, well, what if I get audited for using this tax credit that they gave me in plain English? Well, then the conversation is like, just don't do any shady shit and you should be fine.
Yeah.
And document, right? That's the biggest thing. If you've ever heard anybody get audited for using tax strategy and their audit was atrocious, it's because they didn't have their shit in order.
Yep.
That's the only reason. But you don't ever hear about any, hey, I had an audit last week and he was here for 15 minutes, asked me for 3 files and left. Like, no one talks about that. It's not fun.
I hear about that. Like,
I mean,
truthfully.
I do too. Yeah.
Like the guys that are organized, a lot of times they'll just flip through it and they're like, whoa, you're organized. Okay. Yeah. Like that's it. Yeah.
That's so, they're babysitting the fact that you are using the book is what an audit is.
Sure.
They want to make sure you're doing it legally. So, but yeah, I mean, back to the point, right? The point is, regardless if you are a business owner or a highly compensated, W-2 employee, like there's avenues for you to be able to start leveraging to minimize that tax, to minimize that pain. And
right. You still there?
I am.
Oh, sorry.
I thought you froze, bro.
Oh no, I didn't freeze. I thought you stopped. I was trying to let you finish.
No, you're good.
Um, so if you were trying to produce, let's say you were just an average person and you were making an average amount of income, what, like we talk in our inner circle group all the time about creating like financial freedom.
Yeah.
Because what I teach and preach and espouse is like taking control of your life and of as many aspects of it as you possibly can. What do you like from an investment standpoint, as far as like what vehicles would you suggest putting your money in if you're just getting started?
So I think liquidity is the number one focus, and I
Mhm.
think for a couple of reasons. One, typically people just getting started to save, invest, move money out of their checking account or out of their safe at the house, right? On that comfortability of having it at their fingertips. I think you've got to enter into that process in a certain light. So, we all know that if you're a corporate guy, you got a 401k. Everyone tells you to open a Roth. Everyone tells you to do a traditional, all these things the government gives stipulations on, and money that's literally, tied up into the purgatory unless you pay a ton of fees and taxes.
Yep.
I think if we approach this in a light where we're not going balls to the walls aggressive, we're not trying to shock, this individual, and if we can go liquidity and that individual knows if the shit in the fan collide and I burn through all my excess cash, I can still touch this without any issues. But and that burning of the shit doesn't happen often, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
face it.
Sure.
So knowing that it's going to work, it's going to be there, we know they're not going to touch it 99%, right? And then in 6 months, hey man, I know you're feeling better about this. Now let's have the conversation about maybe upping the ante some. What else
Mhm.
should you be doing here? So I think there's a particular way to approach that. And as well as I do, like that's the whole key in my entire profession and feedback for people is like, it's always about liquidity, always.
Sure.
Because for the most part, I work with business owners and, I know that their ability to spend 30% margins in their company, pretty damn easy to do.
Yep.
So why would I take money out that they can't touch to say, hey, we can get an average of, S&P 500 of 8%. Like that's not attractive, right? The opportunity cost there is way too significant.
Right.
So making sure, we're using things, non-qualified accounts, right? But what are they invested in that's important? So short-term duration, fixed income opportunities where we're getting 3, 4, 5, 6% rate of return. Again, I'm not interested in getting you 10%. I want liquidity, but I want to get you something while you're not using it. So we have those types of accounts. Of course, everyone's heard of life insurance, the infinite banking. There seems to be about 3 million professionals on Instagram that sell that stuff. Jeff, you know how I approach this, man. The whole life insurance game is people just talk so much shit about it, and really, it's the advisors trying to sell the wrong shit that screw this thing up for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to sell the most commissioned product, right? And if you just put this out there because not a lot of people know this, right? So if you put $100,000 into a life insurance policy and it's a whole life policy, it's paying 55% commissions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a stack.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a $55,000 paycheck in a day for me. So for an advisor who's money driven, that would be the first thing that I try to get you to buy.
Yep.
Right. But there's no liquidity there. It's the wrong thing. And that's what typically people hate. Right. And they do it for 2 years and then they're upset. So we utilize one that's got 80 to 85% liquidity within the first 30 days, first 60, first 90, whenever you need it. Right. And again, it's getting you 4, 5, 6, 7% while you're not using the money. But then the magic happens. This positive arbitrage on liquidity, where you can use your money if you want, but you can also use my money and make money off my money using my money.
Yeah.
And that's where everyone starts to perk up. But it's only doable in one specific policy. And that's, I think, the mark. It's a high early cash value policy.
Yep.
That's the only one that's going to work for you, period, point blank. I don't care what anyone else tells you.
Right.
It is what it is. So, I think the whole thing about it is liquidity, the ability for you to exercise your cash when deals fall into play, and not have to worry about going to the bank for a loan or producing documents. It's your cash. It's there. And we get a little bit of upside while you're not touching it.
And you've got a similar product on the business side that is
it's an investment account. Yeah.
Investment
Corporate.
account, right?
It's a corporate reserve account.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, we all operate our companies. We all tend to keep, a little bit of capital that's not part of our normal operation expense. But why? Right? If we're keeping 3 to 6 months of our OpEx in cash, anything above that, we should be deploying for benefit. So you put it in a non-qualified account. We've got some partners in the industry that give decent interest rate lines of credit against that. And it's not the powerful thing is on the insurance side and on the investment side, it doesn't hurt your debt to income ratio. So for companies looking to finance, people looking to do these types of things, it's not, you're not having to worry about your credit, right? Which is also cool. So the idea there is again, you have access. You can use your own money if you want, but we also, depending on interest rate environments and other specifics, we could probably use someone else's money and make the deal better.
Absolutely. Every time.
Yeah. Well,
it's always better.
Not every time, but 99.9 for sure.
Yeah. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are philosophically aligned in the liquidity side of things. Like I'm a huge proponent of cash flow and like just making sure that these guys are taking advantage of every aspect of things. And like you see it in our inner circle group with like just the lack of, I just don't think any of this stuff gets taught enough. And like, I mean, these guys are competent business owners, have created a level of success for themselves and their families, and they have no idea that this stuff exists. And they might be 10 years in business.
Yeah.
And so like, that's why I think it's so important that like you and I have discussions about this publicly and teach this stuff to people, because it can close the gap on that learning curve and that struggle curve dramatically.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you were talking about.
Other thing, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I was gonna say the other thing, like what you and I see is they get introduced to this and then they go into, like, they've heard about it, they've talked about it, then they actually get introduced to it to someone. And then they go into this dive of like paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
I got to know exactly everything about this little intricate detail because they've heard so much bad shit out there that now they're going into detective mode. I need to be a lawyer. What's this cost me every week? What does it cost me every month? And they lose sight of like the tool doesn't cost you anything if you utilize the tool the right way. Like, let me teach you that first, and then you can get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
But until you know how it works, like none of this other shit matters. So to your point, it's like they either wait way too long, or they wait way too long, get introduced to it, and then wait way too long to like just say, this is a good tool, let me use it. They get lost in all this other nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the best way to go into it is just open your first policy and just get moving on it with something that's reasonable so that you can watch the flow of it. Like I need to see things happen. So like I do all kinds of weird investments and stuff, but I start small and then I work it all the way through the process so I can see every aspect of it move. And I think that's where I'm at on teaching people high early cash value. Cause I'm like, just open a $5,000 policy and like annually, if you are so paralyzed, cause it's better to give you $5,000 today and open a policy than to read about it for a year. Yeah. And then decide I want a $25,000 policy. Because after you do a year with that $5,000 policy, you'll want a $25,000 policy anyway.
Right. Yeah. And then, there's always that chance you choke on a hamburger and have a heart attack or stroke out or whatever that could take this opportunity away. Because there is that, right? There is some health issues to it to make sure that you're not going to croak.
Yeah. And that's tricky balance for some people to deal with too, because like they see it like on its face as being like, well, I can buy this $1 million term policy for $300, but this one cost $10,000 and it pays my family $500,000. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. And like, but they're not looking long term at like all the usages of it.
And the higher cash value, you get the death benefit on those is crazy right out of the gate. If you put 10, 15, 20 grand in one, you're in the millions of death benefits. So if you actually say, okay, if I die, highly unlikely, but if I do, that cash on cash return's hefty.
Yeah.
You just don't get to party with it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You don't get to hang out. So, all that saying this, there's options out there. There's opportunity. The deal is you just got to get connected with the right person who's not trying to sell you some shit just to get paid, who can educate you, and and then you can go from there. So
Sure.
there's definitely opportunities. And if that's not a thing, like some people are just anti-insurance, right? They're like, F that, I don't want to die. Like, whatever, conspiracy theorists. So there's other stuff too.
So having dealt with a lot of clients on this, like what are some of the best ways you see people utilizing these policies or these business lines of credit that you're setting up? Like what are some of the best things that they're doing strategically?
Really, it's one of two avenues. They're either relaying that capital back into their company for an acquisition, right? Buying out someone down the street, taking advantage of, their supply, whatever, buying in bulk. There's things that they can do with larger chunks of money that may save the business, right? And then oftentimes it equals more income.
Yeah.
So that's one avenue. And the only other undefeated avenue, Jeff, I think we all know this one, is real estate. Like, hands down. Even through 2007, 2008, people that were on their ass and negative equity in their house, quote unquote, they don't remember those pain points right now. Because they're probably sitting on $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 of positive equity because the game has changed. It's the wave has crashed. So those are the two things that we see oftentimes that people are leveraging, for sure.
Yeah, I think business owners underestimate their ability to have liquidity for strategic investments within their business. There is no better investment that a business owner can make than investing in their own business most of the time, because the returns are exponential. They're like 30x.
Yeah. And you already have a track record of doing, whatever it is your margins are, whether it's 5% on $600 million or it's, 30% on 10 million. Like, you can identify, I know the investment, I know the ROI. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because we get caught up in these conventional ways of thinking. A lot of business owners do, even though they're like superstars in their business. Like, you talk to them and they're like, man, they still think like all these rules apply to them, but they don't understand how great they are.
Most of the time, they need to be reminded, for sure.
Yeah. And with a little bit of liquidity, like, we could scale this thing to 10x, and like, you've got it all right here. It's incredible to watch sometimes. When you're trying to create, okay, so like, those are great investment vehicles, but like, what are some things that you like? We've hit on real estate a couple of times, so maybe we'll go down that rabbit hole, but like, what are you using to build your wealth? Is it just businesses and real estate that you're using to, like?
No, I mean, I got, obviously, I bought the Ferrari, I consider that wealth. That's a collectible in my opinion. That the down payment of that car came from my life insurance policy.
Yep.
Why the hell not pay interest to myself, or at least make money while I got it floating out there. So, that's even doable with these investments, right? It's not just about real estate and business, but if you have an opportunity to buy something low and sell it high, why not?
Because you don't even have to make payments on them.
Right. So that's the beautiful thing too. Like, you take money out of your life insurance, there is no 30-day bill coming in the mail. Like, you get to dictate how you pay that back. It's funny. I tell people all the time, and you've used this and I've used it, we all love hard money when those numbers pencil out, right?
Yeah.
This is a hard money loan that pays you 2%.
Yeah. It's insane.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. So when people start to think of it that way, that, they lose sight of the insurance and all the other stuff, it's really truly what it is. But, I see people in the real estate game. I use it for real estate. I've used I've used it to grow the business, right? Because again, I know exactly what that ROI is going to bring me. We've used it to make other investments, private money, hard money. I've used it in some other business ventures, buying equity. I've used it for anything I can. If I know that I can deploy money to something that's going to pay me monthly, I use it.
Yep.
I use it because that positive payback to me is paying back that for the however long it takes, and then it's all positive cash flow.
Sure. And you've got the asset remaining.
Yeah, and then you
course.
gotta pay for it. How you got the house paying you $1,500 a month. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So what are you? What's on the horizon for you? What are you doing next?
I like a lot of people are stacking cash. Right now in this season, I think November, I think the campaign trail kicks off, so that'll start to push things certain ways. I think we're still seeing this interest rate conversation push people to hold money. So it's going to be interesting to see how this presidential election starts to point to which side. I think that's going to tell on what a lot of things happen, and do in the economy and which way things are going to go.
Sure.
I'm stacking cash. I'm hopeful that these interest rates stall and start to come down. Right.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see things that we're tracking that would suggest that. Now, obviously no one has that crystal ball, but
sure,
we're starting to track some things that would suggest a decrease in interest rates. And I think if that happens, money supply is going to loosen up some. So right now everything's tight, right? I mean, you see banks offering 4 or 5, 6% for money market accounts, right? So for those of you who aren't really paying attention to what that means, banks are trying to get as much liquidity as possible right now. They're stacking the vaults full, and they're stacking it for a reason. The same thing that happened 2008 and 2009, and they were a little late to the game, right? And buying real estate. So if you recall back then, I mean, I know you do, banks would come in and big investment houses would buy the entire neighborhood, all the vacant houses in one swoop. And so you're going to start to see a lot of that again. You've got some notes coming due, 7-8 year balloon notes that people were taking out back when money was very cheap.
Yeah.
That are coming due. You've got these people in the last 3 years that have been paying, they paid $200,000-300 grand more for a house, higher interest rate, that are getting sick and tired of that shit. Yeah. So there's going to be, I think, a flood of opportunity, both real estate and business. So I think even business owners are going to be able to monopolize on market share if they're stacking cash right now.
I think I'm glad you mentioned businesses. I think now is the time. I think the next 6 months are the time for really like the players to wheel and deal, because I'm seeing stuff that you can buy for literally 40 cents on the dollar right now because of all the tightening and because of some of these people have been sitting in notes that they can't figure out a way to get out of, shit like that. And they can't carry them any longer. Right. The balloons are coming on a lot of commercial properties, multi-unit stuff like that. I agree with you, but I think the interest rate's going to stay flat the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't anticipate, I was going to mention that too. I don't anticipate it till maybe Q2 next year. If a decrease is to happen, I think we still got a while.
It's going to be fucking gangbusters when it does, though. Holy smokes. There's so much money locked up and sitting on the sidelines right now that if you wait until then, you've waited too long. Yeah.
So here's some things people can go do today, right? Some takeaways for your people.
Come on.
If you don't have a HELOC, go get a HELOC. Yep. Rule number 1, apply for it, because here's the other piece that they're going away. Banks are going to quit offering HELOCs at some point because they're going to be protecting their cash. And here's the problem. The reason that it's going to go away is because most people go get a HELOC and never use the bitch. Mm-hmm. So it's money that banks have to have on hand in case you decide to use it. So it's less money that they can deploy on profitability. Yep. And so they're going to start stripping those away. I've talked to a lot of guys who sell HELOCs for the banks. That's coming down the pipeline. So go get it.
I've seen them cut them in half already this year.
Yeah. So, and some banks have done that. Some of your smaller, credit unions and mom and pop type banks are doing that. I don't recommend you go into one of those for that reason. They're going to be the first ones to clip them. If you go to Chase, you go to a business bank, you go to, your Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, whoever, they're more likely to let you ride as long as you have it before they quit letting people, get them. So HELOC is number one. That's $100,000 plus that you don't have access to today that you can have access to in less than 30 days. Okay. So that's $100,000 you could deploy that you didn't know you had access to, or maybe you did, you just didn't know how to go get it.
Yep.
Then stack cash, tighten the belt a little bit, sit on your hands, don't lock yourself in the house, but be smart about your expenses over the next 12 months. Wait for the Ferrari, wait for the gym, whatever it might be. Sit on cash, stack it. Don't spend it, because if this is something you want to get into, real estate, business acquisitions, being your own boss, any of that, you're going to have to start somewhere. So why not start when you already know it's a lull? We're not buying unless it's me or you, and we're buying anything we can get our hands on.
Yep.
Right. But we also have been ready for 20 years. So, but if you're not ready, stack cash, keep it, hoard it, don't touch it. And you'll be glad in 12 months when you can go buy a real estate, investment property.
Sure. I think it's going to get fucking murky waters in 12 months. Everybody will be in.
Yeah. That's why I want to buy now. So when that starts
Yes.
happening, I don't have to fuck with it.
That's what I mean. I mean. Like, the seasonality of it all right now is the season for like the professional investors are snatching shit up right now. And
well, yeah, they're pulling out of Airbnbs, right?
Yeah.
People are flooding away from that market who are using that market as a true means of living, right? Creating an investment, income. And from what we see and, what you and I watch, our mentors doing is, boutique motels and quadruplexes and multifamily and, corporate, business, and then triple net, flex space.
Yep.
That's where, if you're already in investments, right, a little bit about real estate, you've got, a few single families underneath your belt, and you're wondering where you should be looking. If you haven't started looking there, you're late.
There's also going to be opportunity in that Airbnb market as it shrinks, because there's guys that are stuck in those that were depending on the income that was maybe just breaking even to pay the note, that now with occupancy dropping and things like that, they're going to be looking to sell those and unload them. And so there will be some opportunity there to buy and holds.
Right.
And so
probably buy and do a long-term hold for now until Airbnb gets their act together or someone else comes up with a better platform.
Yeah.
Just too many. It's too many of them. Like, I mean, I've got one in Orlando of all places, not far from Disney, that's sucking wind.
Well, I mean, the growth rate was exponential on how fast they were growing, with people putting everything and anything. Like, there was guys buying like just regular Houston 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom brick ranches and putting them on Airbnb, and they were killing it. And like, for what reason? Like that's what made no sense.
Yeah.
And
go downtown Houston. No, thanks.
And so like, there was just so much strangeness to that growth trajectory that like appeared unsustainable. Yeah. And now it's kind of coming home. You hear me talk all the time on our group calls. Like you have to go one of two directions with Airbnb if you want to be successful right now. And it's big mini bedrooms, big hosting homes, or like unique experience homes, like getaways, log cabins, tree houses, shit like that.
Yep.
And
there's mad game in those right now, and there will be forever.
Yeah, those will be winners forever.
Yeah. Yep. But your house over there off of 19th Street in downtown Jacksonville is probably not going to yield you a bunch.
Because another piece that I think, and you can give your thoughts on this, I think it's another great time for the next 6 months, let's just say, because that's all I'm willing to look at. It is a great time to grab up some businesses with some owner financing. If you want to like transition from a W-2 job to an owner operator type situation, I think now is it's the best time I've seen in 20 years, because the business owners that want out know that it's hard to get financing. Everybody knows that is in the game. They're like, no one's going to go give you a 9% business line of credit for a service-based business right now. Like, it's not happening. Yep. And so you can get in with a low down payment with a seller carry situation and start your own business, right? Like, and take over a business, buy a business with a very low down payment with some creative financing options with an owner. So like now I think is a great time to do that.
I've had, and I think to your point, I've had, if I were to count back in the last 2 weeks, I've probably vetted 6 deals that were a bit local to me. Within 2 hours, I passed up on all 6 just because of time, right? I just don't have time to drive 2 hours and check up on stuff. But these 6 deals were all owner finance, 100% owner finance opportunities, which again, that's positive arbitrage. You're playing with someone else's money, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And, it was more of one of those kind of like venture capital takeovers, and you stay the CEO, but you don't need to show up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep you on payroll. There's so many unique ways to do that financing that you can 100% of the time make it work for everybody.
Well, yeah. And what I'm trying to express to everybody is that, like, if rates drop back to 3 or 4%, those owners that would give it to you now, seller financing, are going to tell you to kick rocks. Because they're like, banks are liquid as hell right now. Go get the money from them. Right. So right now is the time that everybody that's in the game understands that, like, hey, we can do a deal.
Yeah. And that's a mailer conversation. That's a cold call conversation. That's starting to spit information out and advertise that you're looking in your local area to take market share.
Yeah.
Because listen, just as you send 1,500, mailers out to buy real estate and you get, a bunch of reactions, people are going to call you.
Yep.
For sure. So yeah, that's definitely one of the easiest routes from point A to B would be that today.
I think that people oftentimes overcomplicate this, though, because like that particular situation we're talking about, where like if you like a business or an industry, if you want to get into it, like it's as simple as starting a conversation or taking somebody to coffee and like, hey, so what's your plan with this business? Or like, do you want to get out? Or is there an opportunity there? People overcomplicate that and they want to take it all the way from like $0 to $20 million. And they paralyze themselves with the complexity of knowing every step of that way.
Yep.
Like I just had a conversation the other day with a client about this same thing. He runs like preschools, and he's got it so dialed in and optimized that he doesn't live in any of the states where he owns and runs them. And they kick off a 25 to 30% net profit each and every one. And I'm like, that is such a repeatable system. And he was getting caught in his own shit trying to go all the way to private equity money. He's like, I need a $20 million fund so I can do a full takeover. And I'm like, the fuck you do? You got 30% returns on $1 million business. There's a lot of people that would go in and partner on a business that's that lucrative. You need 3 people. You don't need a private equity fund. Like, go do this 10 times and then private equity will come talk to you.
Right.
I just think people,
and during that wait, you just buy your partners out.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many different ways to do it. And yeah, I think one big piece of advice for anyone in business is don't be greedy.
Yep.
That's the key. Just don't be greedy. Everybody can eat joint venture as much as you can until you don't have to.
Yep.
Right. And even when you have to, joint venture, right? I mean, you and I talk about JV and shit all the time, and we don't have to, but it just oftentimes makes sense.
For me, it does right now at my phase of life I'm in. I'd much rather partner with like good people and for good reasons. Like I had a conversation today about a particular venture where I was offering 50% of a deal, and the guy was just dumbfounded that I would offer 50% because I was doing like 90%. Yeah. And I was like, I want to offer 50% because this isn't the last time we're going to do this. And he's like, okay, let's go. And so, I mean, I think greed is a killer, ego is a killer, and fear is a killer. And so like people oftentimes can't get out of their own way. Like for me, I can see fucking $200 million. Like, do I need to get caught around the axle as we get the first million.
Well, the thing is this, if we can remove the emotion, they don't have that issue.
Right.
And that's what I talk to with our clients all the time. If we're vetting a deal and the numbers pencil out, I'm like, all right, well, then the question now is, what's the most efficient dollar in your ecosystem to use? There should be no other question.
Right.
If it's profitable and it pushes you closer to your goal and you have capital access, then what is the problem? There is no problem.
Nope.
Execute. And so our clients pull the trigger a lot more. And if you talk to anyone that has worked with us, we've pushed them to probably grow quicker than they anticipated they were going to.
Sure.
And it's
That's
just
huge.
by nature of being able to be effective and efficient with capital and then helping them source what dollar to use in the deal.
And I think that's super important because most people just get complacent and that's why they don't grow.
Right.
Like if I'm sitting over here on my real estate portfolio and I've got 80 rentals and but I'm just over here by myself, like no one's like being like, have you bought a house this month, Jeff? Like, have you added a rental this quarter? Or what asset class are you seeking out now?
Right.
And there's no one to do that. So like what you're doing is a vital service that keeps the fucking train moving. And people have no idea how important that is. Cause oftentimes you're just like, I got busy, or that employee quit at my job. So I didn't add to my real estate portfolio this week, or not this week, this year.
Right.
And,
Now I'm gonna
next
put it
thing you
on
know, right. It's 9 months down the road. You got all this money in your checking account or whatever. And like, you have no more assets.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the market's changed and you can't afford to buy shit.
Yeah.
Right. Because we have seen a swift change in the market before. So the thing is, you got to get a foundational plan in order and you got to know your numbers, right? Which shit, you and I both know, you ask 10 people, 7 of them have no clue. The other 3 are my clients. So they know, right? You got to know your numbers, you got to know your cash flow. And then you have to be really, you just got to put your money in the appropriate places that are going to get you where you want to go. And whatever those tools are, you got to get educated on those tools.
Yeah.
And you got to execute.
And we beat the hell out of real estate today, but like anything will work. Like that is what I try to impress on anybody. Like whatever you want to do, like you can make money doing it. And you can make a lot of money. There's angles and ways to do it.
Dude, I mean, how many men's coaches do you see on Facebook when you open up? There's 1,000 of them.
Right.
You get 4 clients that give you $1,000 a month and you got $4,000. I mean, that's 50 grand, and that's how easy that is.
Sure.
And then it's just, now what do you add to that? Perfect the first thing and then add, right? So we also see that, hey, I started this business 3 weeks ago. Now I got other businesses I want to put in play.
Right.
Well, Jesus Christ, let's start over here. Let's keep these things in order, right? The foundational business has to be there and solid, right? And then you start adding. Would you agree to that?
Yeah. I term it a little bit differently. I think you have to have a source of active income. And then as you have that active income, you have to deploy it into other assets that make you money as well. But yes,
more sophisticated way to say it. Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying 100%. Like we use a different term sometimes too, is like, you can never not pay attention to your golden goose.
Right.
It's that golden goose is what got all the other shit. And like, if you turn that spigot off, then you're screwed to an extent. And so, I mean, I was thinking more along the lines of like different business types you could buy, like people like laundromats and people like,
oh yeah,
my sister has a bunch of mobile home parks, and like some of that shit is ugly and people don't like it, but like you can make money doing anything.
I had a client call me 3 weeks ago, and he's like, "Hey, I just picked up a 5-pack of mobile homes for like 220 grand." Okay. He called me this week on Tuesday and sold the whole fucking thing for 580. The whole thing. Just because he was able to get in there, fix it up a little bit, remove some trees, clean things up, put some paint on it. And, another group of buyers came in and swooped it. He wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have the liquidity.
Yeah.
Right. So that is a play on liquidity that fell into his lap. But to your point, like, we both know Travis Wells, and typically I don't say names on here, but Travis is a motherfucking killer.
Yeah.
Mobile homes and what he's doing. This
100%.
dude is paying like $2,500 for a mobile home. He's like, man, as long as the metal structure is great, I buy it.
Yep.
Because he puts a little bit of cash in it and he's cash flowing $800 a month on him, $900 a month on him,
Yeah. I mean, even if he buys it, you can strip those things out and remodel them for next
50
to nothing.
grand. Yeah. I mean, you're 50 grand in there, all in, like location, sewer, electric, the whole thing.
Yeah. If you're talking, hookups and everything else. Yes.
Yeah. And furnished.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But to your point, man, it's not just real estate. It's literally any business concept works today. Post COVID, you literally can do anything you want from anywhere you want, as long as you have internet.
And as long as you can just get clear on what you want. I think the reason that most people don't ever pursue any of this like freedom or any of this financial security and wealth is because, one, they don't understand it and they get frustrated too quickly. Two, they think it's going to be fast and it's not. It's going to take fucking 20 years. So just understand that.
Right.
It doesn't really take 20 years, but like, and the third thing is like, they just don't think it's for them for some reason. And like, they can't do that. But like, we've named a bunch of examples of ways that like anybody could do anything. Almost anybody listening to this could figure out how to get 50 grand to buy a trailer and rent it for $800.
Absolutely.
Like
the other piece, like, let's go away from real estate. If you can figure out how to solve a problem for anybody, meaning one singular person, that problem exists all over the place. And if you can solve a problem for me, chances are that I know people having the same problem, and now you have a client base.
Yep.
So that's
you talked about it. You started a bounce house business,
right?
With one person and one bounce house.
Yeah, and like a Nissan Armada and a dolly from like Harbor Freight.
Right. And
literally. And then we had several hundred inflatables and a ton of other shit.
Yeah.
But it just takes the one little piece of action to start the marathon.
Right.
The marathon is the journey. Right. And so to your point, right, how do you fail? Well, you don't have a clear picture of what you want to do. You can't solve a problem and you give up too quick.
Give up too quick is the next one I was going to hit on, because like it's lack of focus. It's shifting focus all the time that you never get any results.
Yeah.
Because when I say it's going to take 20 years, I tell people it's going to take 3 to 7 years until you're financially free. So your life is completely different. Your lifestyle is completely different because of this income you've created. But like you might not be private jets and all this bougie shit until like year 20. It just builds and builds and builds.
Maybe never. Maybe you just ain't bougie.
Maybe that's not what you want too, right? Like that's why, we start all our stuff with vision exercises because like that's what's important. Like, what do you want? I don't want the same shit you want. I don't want that fucking Ferrari.
Yeah, you do.
No interest in it.
You don't want to ride with me?
No, I'm going to get a big booty, brand new dually in a moment here soon that you'll be jealous of.
Those new 2024s interior is disgusting.
Yeah.
So sick. Yeah. And the GMC and the Chevys, so sick. But no, to your point, man, like people they give up. They get punched in the face the first time. They're like, oh, fuck this. I'm going to go back to work for Freddie. I can deal with Freddie's bullshit attitude, and make a little bit of money. But I think you're accurate. I think you start to see a financial tilt in how you do shit year 5 to 7.
Yep.
You start carrying yourself a different way. You start realizing what rooms you need to be in, and then you start pouring back into yourself on investments. Right? Investing in yourself. I know you spend 6 figures a year. I spend 6 figures a year to be in certain rooms.
Yep.
Right. Yep. For a purpose. So, that's another investment. You invest in yourself, right? It doesn't have to be real estate. It doesn't have to be insurance or investments like that monetarily, but buy your way into a shorter pain point. The shit sandwich doesn't have to take 400 million bites.
That's a really good point, because we didn't even hit on that on the front end. Like if you're like, a lot of people ask all the time, if you have $50,000, what's the best investment you can make? And it's probably anything under 100 grand is probably in yourself. Like if you only, I shouldn't say only, if you have $50,000 to invest, like you should buy a $10,000 mastermind or a coach, or in exactly what you want to do.
Listen, so I bet this answer parallels across any industry on anyone who has been quote unquote successful, right? The question, if you had 50 grand in your first year of business, what would you do with 50 grand? My answer would be, I would find the guy who's doing what I want to do at a much better rate, and I would follow him for a year. I would spend 50 grand on living that year, bare bones minimum, and I would just figure out a way. Can you hire me?
Yep.
I'll be your videographer. You don't even have to pay me. Just let me follow and document your life and how you do business. And I would take a 12-month pause in this business venture and study and then get everything ready. And then in the 12th month, I'd quit and launch my company. That's what I would.
Yeah. Or just pay him 50 grand to coach you if he takes on clients.
Yeah.
And then run your business and let him fucking show you the way. Because I mean, that's what coaches are for, right? Like,
tell me I'm an idiot every week and how to fix my shit. That's all I need.
speed, leverage, and connections.
That's it.
So, yeah, man. Well, this has been awesome, dude. Do you have any tips or tricks on getting independently wealthy these days? I think we hit a bunch, but
there's a lot there. Tip number one, develop a plan. Tip number two, execute the plan and fall back on mentors.
Yep.
And sit on your hands and save as much cash as you can so you can buy some real estate or a business.
I want to reiterate, because I can't say it enough, that like literally this is the best time in the last 10 years, at least, to buy things 50 cents on the dollar. Businesses, real estate, anything you want, if you can get a hold of cash specifically.
Yeah.
And that's just partners. That's just liquidity. That's just like, you don't even have to give up equity. You can just get a lender that has some money. And I don't mean a bank. I mean, people, friends and family type stuff. Like, and you have all the negotiation power, because like most people, like I said, are not going to go get a 9 or 10% business loan right now. So if you find a $600,000 business that you've got $450,000 cash, and you know it's worth 800 grand, you can probably go offer them the 450 tomorrow, and they would probably take it.
Yeah. You just got to go pull a report in your local area of business owners' age, and you identify the 75-year-olds, the 70-year-olds, the 68-year-olds, and you start approaching them. They want out.
Yeah.
They know this shit isn't going to get any better.
Yep.
So right now is their most beneficial time to exit with a favorable outcome. So then,
what we were talking about earlier with seller financing,
yeah.
All you do is say, hey, you should seller finance it so you don't have to take the hit on taxes.
Yeah.
Like, how much do you need to make?
Yeah.
Every
how much
week,
do I need to pay you in payroll?
a month?
Right. How much do you need me to pay you? And then I'm going to pay you some principal every year on the note and interest.
Yeah.
On top of that. Right. And then there's other things you can negotiate in there, right? Old people can't make enough, as much money if they're on Social Security. So if they're 70, 72, and they're about to take some Social Security, you negotiate that.
Yeah.
And
just make it a win-win for everybody. Like, what do you need to live? Like, I'll be your annuity for the next fucking 20 years.
Yeah. 100%. So plenty of ways to do it. If you guys have questions, anybody reaches out to you, Jeff and I are both more than happy to jump on a call for sure.
How do they find you, Keith?
Instagram is at your biz advisor _ Facebook is Keith Gause. I'm sure that Royal has probably got some kind of Facebook page with Crocs all over it for me. You can find me there. Just get with Royal. But those are the two ways. And then my cell phone, man, I'm an open book, 904-401-9327.
All right. Gause is Gause. We'll put all the connections and links in the show notes. But so hit this guy up. He runs Tideland Financial. He is a whiz at guiding you in the right direction on the path to wealth and freedom. And he also doesn't bullshit you. If you're not a fit for his services, he is going to give you some value and then send you on your way. So I appreciate that about him. I respect him. I send him a lot of clients because of that reason. So understand that a lot of people aren't a fit, but he's still going to take the time to listen and give you some advice on where you're at. So you can be a fit eventually. So
That's right.
thank you for your time, Keith. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me for sure.
And thank you all for listening. Hit up Keith.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.